This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to answer the question, will Bitcoin be banned? A lot of people have been asking me about Ray Dalio's comments that Bitcoin will be banned should it become material. Now, Ray Dalio is obviously a billionaire and the founder of the world's largest hedge fund. So when he talks, we should definitely listen, and I wanted to address his dilemma. If you're interested in learning how to make money in both bull and bear markets, or you just want to see what I'm trading or investing in, be sure to hit that subscribe button. So I'm going to link to the actual interview where he makes these comments. You can watch it if you want. The one thing I would start by saying is that the way the current regulatory currents are going and the way trends are going, what's actually happening, especially in the US, is that Bitcoin is being more and more legitimized and legalized. So we covered this back in July when it was when the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency in the U.S. said that federally chartered banks could now provide storage and custody for crypto assets, obviously including Bitcoin. Now, this is not something that a government does right before it's about to ban Bitcoin. The same with PayPal launching their new cryptocurrency service. This is not something that gets regulatory approval and then the government bans Bitcoin the next day. The same thing we're seeing happening is huge institutional flows from family offices, from hedge funds, from other large institutions moving out of gold. This was very significant, this JP Morgan report, moving out of gold and into Bitcoin. So this is the big money, this is the smart money, these are the federal regulators, and all of them are trending in the other direction. But to be fair to what Ray Dalio said, he actually said that should it become material. So what does he mean by that? Well, he means that what could happen to Bitcoin is it could be banned if the market cap gets large enough. Now, something like gold has a market cap of 10, 11, 12 trillion, somewhere around there. Right now, Bitcoin, which is trading at approximately 16,000, has a market capitalization, a market cap under 300 billion. It's still very, very tiny by market standards. And if we take a look at the S&P 500 companies, the market cap of Bitcoin is somewhere between JP Morgan, which has a market cap of approximately 300 billion, United Health, Home Depot. It's somewhere around there. That's the basic area of the market cap. And so what Dalio is talking about, and anyone who's worried about Bitcoin being banned, what they're really saying is they're saying they're extremely bullish on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is going to be banned, it's not going to be banned when it has a market cap of 300 billion, especially when everything's working towards normalizing and legalizing the use of Bitcoin. What Dalio is talking about, and what other people are talking about who say Bitcoin is going to be banned, is that it's going to be banned after it gets a much larger market cap, certainly in the low trillions at minimum. So what people are saying when they say they're worried about Bitcoin being banned, and they're saying, well, I'm not going to buy it because I'm worried it's going to be banned, what they're basically saying is, I'm not going to buy it because I think it's going to go up a lot. And if you think Bitcoin's going to be banned, you secretly believe that Bitcoin's going to go up somewhere between 6 and 10x minimum from here to get that multi-trillion market cap. Now, the other thing we should talk about is what happens to the price of things when they're banned. Does the price of it go up or down? We can use the classic example of alcohol during Prohibition in the US. The price of alcohol obviously went up a lot when it was illegal, and you had many fortunes, including the Kennedy fortune that was made bootlegging alcohol. So it's very bad to have black markets. It's bad to make things illegal, and it just doesn't work. Certainly in terms of the pricing, you can ask yourself, what happens to the price of various guns and their accessories? What happened to the price of marijuana when it was banned in the early 30s? What happened to the price of LSD when it was banned in the 70s? These things are very difficult to stop, and banning them basically makes the price go up. Now, gold was banned in 1933. The private ownership of gold, except for small amounts of jewelry, was banned because the U.S. was trying to actively devalue the dollar. There was a peg between the dollar and the U.S. There's a peg between gold and the dollar. You could exchange a dollar for a certain number of ounces of gold, and this peg was broken, and gold, the value of the dollar, or the value of gold in dollars, was changed to allow the U.S. essentially to print money and devalue the US dollar and try to stimulate the economy after the Great Depression. But what happened is the price of gold actually went up, and it was very hard to confiscate gold, just as it has been very hard worldwide to try to confiscate and shut down marijuana. You can imagine something like Bitcoin, which is a non-physical item, even more difficult to confiscate. And banning it will only drive the price up because it's a scarce asset. We can look here that sort of the inverse of this is when marijuana has been legalized in various states. It's really being legalized in more and more states after the recent election. But we can see the prices have fallen. Prices are down almost 25% in Colorado. This is for high quality marijuana from 2010 to 2019, down 25%. In Colorado, down 27, 28%. In California, I think these were the two first large states to legalize it. So when you make something legal, the price goes down. When you make something, if you ban something, it makes the price go up. Now, the other difficult thing, we said Bitcoin would be very difficult to confiscate. It's not like looking for grow houses and confiscating marijuana or confiscating bars of gold, but confiscating gold is difficult enough. People can hide it in their basement, etc. But Bitcoin is digital gold. It's even more difficult to confiscate. The Bitcoin network is not run by anyone. It's completely decentralized. There's no one in charge, as there is, for example, Vitalik Buterin with Ethereum or Ripple Labs with XRP. Bitcoin is actually very decentralized. And the Bitcoin full nodes, which run the software and verify that everyone's obeying the rules, anyone can run one of these nodes on a computer, and they're spread all over the world. Bitcoin miners are all over the world, found in every country. And as we said, the governments have been unable to stop marijuana, so how can they stop something that's immaterial, that's non-physical, and that's digital? This is a map of all those full Bitcoin nodes. You can see they're all over the US, all over Europe. We have them in South America, Africa, parts of Asia, Australia, Russia, etc. And so when you're talking about banning Bitcoin, you could ban it within the US. Of course, people could still run their full nodes. They could still send Bitcoin to each other. And, they might get caught. They might get in trouble. But you ban it in one country. How are you going to ban it all over the world? How are you going to get especially countries like maybe Russia or Iran, who are not especially friendly to the US at certain points in time? How are you going to get them to go along with you? There are lots of countries, even European countries, obviously, that don't like the US dollar and the unfair power that it gives the US. Charles de Gaulle was famous for calling the US dollar and the US's ability to just print it to buy things like crude oil, calling it an exorbitant privilege. So are these countries, even friendly countries like European countries, are they going to work together with the US to help ban Bitcoin as a threat to the US dollar? Is China really want to shut down Bitcoin and help the US government solidify the place of the US dollar as a world reserve currency? Very unlikely. Very unlikely. Banning Bitcoin, I've compared it to banning the internet or banning biotech research. If you do something like this, people are just going to leave if they can. And they're going to, especially the smart people who are interested in cryptography, the wealthy people who own Bitcoin or want to work on it, same for biotech or anything like that, they're just going to leave the country. And so you're going to have a net exodus of talent. Capital has always been very mobile. If a government is unfriendly to wealthy people, it's very easy for them to just pick up and leave. It can be difficult at times during in Nazi Germany, for example. It was very difficult for Jewish people to leave. Same for the Soviet Union after the Russian Revolution. But Bitcoin is much more mobile. It's very different than having to sell your real estate, having to sell your bars of gold, having to sell your business to leave the country. You can basically memorize your seed word, your seed phrase, 12 words or 24 words, and you can just walk across a border and literally take billions of dollars with you. And I think smart governments realize this, that Bitcoin is very hard to contain within your border. Now let's do a thought experiment. If Bitcoin was banned everywhere, except for, let's pick just two countries that seem to be fairly loose in terms of their financial regulations, having low taxes, being very friendly to capital. Singapore and the Cayman Islands. If Bitcoin's banned everywhere in the world except for these two countries, you get all the millionaires and billionaires, billionaire Bitcoiners moving to these two countries. These two countries will become more wealthy. They'll have smarter people living there, etc. And so it's really not an advantage to, it's not to the advantage of any country to try to drive these people, out of their country. Then there's the game theory of Bitcoin. If it makes more sense to just own it rather than ban it, to own a little bit as an insurance policy, and then if it goes up, you can benefit from it, and you don't have to worry about cracking down on it. I think it's a little bit going back to the marijuana analogy, because it's an analogy that a lot of people are familiar with as something that's very widespread and yet has been illegal in much of the world for the last 50 years. If everyone in a given generation grows up smoking pot, do you think when they become legislators and politicians, do you think it gets banned or legalized? It's obviously, we've been on this path toward legalization really since the 1990s in California with medical marijuana. And so I think something very similar, we have a whole generation of millennials and Gen Z, Zoomers growing up thinking in terms of digital tokens, thinking in terms of Bitcoin. All my kids know what Bitcoin is. You may have seen that video where a guy put out cards that contain Bitcoin in his Halloween trick-or-treat candy pile, and all the kids knew about that. So I think we have a whole generation that's very cryptocurrency friendly, that is used to using digital tokens and digital currencies and non-physical items in their video games. In addition to that, how many government officials, lobbyists, regulators, bankers, central bankers already own some Bitcoin personally? We obviously have no way of knowing. We do know that there are a lot of billionaires that own Bitcoin. Obviously, billionaires have a lot of political clout. They can run for office. They can pay lobbyists. They can pay for more Bitcoin-friendly legislation. It's usually not a bad idea to be on the same side of things as billionaires when it comes to movements. And so I think this is really what happens. We get more rich Bitcoiners running for office, lobbying for Bitcoin-friendly laws. We already saw this person at the OCC who made it okay for banks and thrifts to provide custody for crypto. Brian Brooks is his name. He used to work for Coinbase in San Francisco. So what's going to happen is you're going to have more and more people who grow up with Bitcoin, who own Bitcoin, who work for Bitcoin companies, infiltrating politics. And we saw this happen. Even we have the first Bitcoiner, open Bitcoiner, elected to the U.S. Senate. Cynthia Lummis, I believe, from Wyoming, was just elected. Yeah, from Wyoming, was just elected this November. And so you can imagine, as you get more and more Bitcoiners in Congress, what happens even if you get a Bitcoin-friendly president. It becomes increasingly unlikely that Bitcoin will be banned at that point. And what happens instead is that there's sort of a mad land grab for it. And there are only 21 million Bitcoin that have ever been made. Probably 4 million have been permanently lost. So you're somewhere around 16 or 17 million Bitcoin. There's not enough Bitcoin for even, I believe there's something like 18 or 19 million millionaires in the US right now. So there's not even enough Bitcoin for each millionaire to buy a whole Bitcoin. And so we're talking about a very scarce asset. And the game theory suggests, rather than being banned, that Bitcoin instead will continue to spread and colonize around the world. And I think, talking about marijuana or the cannabis plant, it's very similar. Here's a plant that has succeeded in getting people to plant it everywhere, to sell it everywhere, and to pass laws that are to its advantage. And Bitcoin is something very similar. It seems to sort of take people over and take over their lives, as I can attest to. And so I think that the game theory suggests that rather than being banned, Bitcoin is going to be gobbled up, taken off the exchanges, put on hardware wallets, put into cold storage, and it will eventually just end up in the vaults of wealthy people as a store of value. Now, we're very lucky because Bitcoin's still at a price where everyone can buy some Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy $10 worth of Bitcoin or $100 worth of Bitcoin. Each Bitcoin's divisible into 100 million Satoshi. So this is one of those rare cases where retail investors have really been ahead of Wall Street and have even been ahead of most of the billionaires. And so this is one reason I spend so much time talking about Bitcoin. I just see huge opportunity in this space. And I would say that Ray Dalio's comments are a little bit 2015, 2016. I don't think he spent a whole lot of time thinking about Bitcoin. He also says that Bitcoin is too volatile to be considered a store of wealth, a store of value. Obviously, Bitcoin, its volatility has been coming down over time. This happens to volatile stocks like Apple and Amazon. They're very volatile at the beginning. As they gain value, they become less and less volatile than they used to be. And so by the time Bitcoin is no longer volatile, it's going to be very valuable. It's going to be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars per Bitcoin. So if you wait for it to become less volatile, you're going to miss out. He also talked about that you can't take your Bitcoin and buy things easily with it. Well, Dalio's a big fan of gold. You can't take your gold and buy things easily with it. There are very high transaction costs involved. Very few stores accept gold. Actually, more stores and e-commerce sites do accept Bitcoin. Once PayPal makes Bitcoin more widespread, it's going to be very easy to pay merchants using Bitcoin. And eventually Amazon's going to accept Bitcoin. This is something that's certainly coming. And so I'm actually a little disappointed. I'm a fan of Ray Dalio, but I find his comments to be, I don't think his critiques are the real critiques. They're sort of straw man critiques of Bitcoin. I don't think he spent as much time as he could thinking about Bitcoin. Please hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you found this video helpful and you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.